I'm a single mom working 2 jobs. One morning I found my front door tagged with "Pay your rent or leave." It was spray painted in red. I own my home. When I asked my neighbor if he saw anything, he smiled and said, "Some people just don't belong here." I filed the footage, but I also filed something else, and he has no idea what's coming next. I'm a single mom. I live in North Glen, Colorado. 2-bedroom house. Bought it myself after the divorce. Took me 5 years of saving while living in a 1-bedroom apartment with my daughter, Sam. She's 10 now. We've been here almost 3 years. I work 2 jobs, day shift at a diner on 104th Avenue, then evenings at Target. Most days, I'm too tired to do much after getting home. I clean, pack Sam's lunch, help her with homework if I can stay awake long enough. It's not easy, but the house? It's mine. Not rented. Not inherited. I worked for it. The down payment came from my tax returns, my divorce settlement, and 10 years of working double shifts. Every wall I painted, every appliance I fixed, I did that. It's not just a house. It's proof that I made it through hell and didn't give up. So when I stepped outside one morning and saw the words, "Pay your rent or leave," spray painted in red across my front door, I froze. It was early. Still dark. I had just gotten Sam's lunch into her backpack. She was brushing her teeth when I opened the door to warm up the car. And there it was. Huge letters. Dripping. Still wet. For a second, I just stared at it. My stomach dropped. I could hear Sam coming up behind me, so I stepped in front of the door. "Mom, what's that?" I turned around and forced a smile. "Nothing, sweetie. Just go grab your jacket." She looked past me and saw it anyway. Her eyes got big. She didn't say anything else. Just walked back inside, quiet. I called in late to the diner. Told them I had a plumbing problem. I couldn't go in looking like that, like someone who got threatened in her own home. After Sam got on the bus, I walked down to my neighbor's house. Ron. Older white guy, ex-military. You know the type. His yard's perfect. Not a blade of grass out of place. Keeps his flag lit at night like it's a job. He moved in about 6 months after me. We'd had issues. Mostly him making snide comments. Didn't know this neighborhood was going to get so loud. Some people need to learn how to park. Stuff like that. Never directly to me, but loud enough that I knew it was meant for me. I knocked on his door. He opened it fast, like he'd been waiting for someone. "Hey," I said. "Did you see anyone around last night?" Someone spray-painted my door. He smiled. I will never forget that smile. Tight. Pleased. Like he'd already rehearsed this. "Nope," he said. "Didn't see a thing." Then he added, "Some people just don't belong here." Just like that. "Nohishitashin." I stared at him for a second. I own that house. He didn't even blink. "Doesn't mean you belong." I walked away. I felt like I couldn't breathe. That night, after I put Sam to bed, I sat in the dark and opened the footage from my doorbell camera. I hadn't looked at it yet because part of me already knew what I'd find. There he was. Ron. 3:08 nachts. Hoodie pulled low, but not enough. Same build. Same gait. Can of spray paint in his right hand. He looked up at the camera before he walked away. Smirked. I saved it. Uploaded it to the cloud. Backed it up twice. I was shaking while I did it. The next morning, I filed a police report. They said they'd look into it, which I knew meant nothing. But I also filed something else. See, what Ron didn't know is that I joined the HOA board 2 months earlier. They needed someone. No one wanted to do it. I volunteered because I figured it might be good to know what was going on around here. Especially after some families of color moved in, and suddenly there were noise complaints and parking violations left and right. They all ignored me on the board. Talked over me. Didn't take anything I said seriously. But now I had footage. I had a complaint history. Turns out Ron had 2 formal warnings already. One for yelling at a Latino family about their van. Another for putting typed notes in neighbors' mailboxes, warning them to respect the standards of the community. I called an emergency meeting. I showed the footage. I laid out every warning, every email, every detail. The board was quiet for a long time after that. Then they voted. Unanimously. Ron got fined $2,000. Required to issue a written apology to me. And he was suspended from filing any neighborhood complaints for 6 months. But I didn't stop there. I contacted a local news station. I used a burner email. Sent the footage. Sent the history. Told them everything. 2 weeks later, the story ran. Single mother targeted by neighbor in HOA dispute. They showed my door. Blurred out Sam's face. Showed a still of Ron looking into the camera. He stopped going outside during the day. The flag came down. I printed out the article and slipped it into every HOA member's mailbox. And then I started digging into Ron's HOA activity. He'd filed dozens of complaints, most of them nonsense. I went door to door. I told people what he'd done, how long he'd been harassing people. Most of them already suspected. Then I found out he was trying to build a shed in his backyard. Zoning issue. His plans had been flagged. He needed approval. Guess who is now part of the zoning committee? Denied. He appealed. I denied again. This time with documentation. He'd violated community standards by intimidating residents. I used his own words. Some people just don't belong here. He tried to sell the house after that. Nobody bought it. Word had spread. People talk. Now, his grass is dying. His house needs paint. He walks his dog early, before the sun's up. People cross the street to avoid him. And me? I got a new front door. Painted it a calm blue. I hung up wind chimes that make this soft, gentle sound when the breeze hits. But I don't forget. I still have that footage saved. Because sometimes the worst people are the ones who smile at you first. Things stayed quiet for a while after that. Ron kept to himself. His yard started to look worse and worse. People whispered, but nobody really talked to him anymore. Then, about 2 months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name. No stamp. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Printed, not handwritten. You brought this on yourself. That was it. I stood there in the kitchen, holding it. My hands were shaking again, just like they had when I first saw the red paint. I looked at the envelope. The handwriting looked familiar. Not Ron's. Someone else. I checked the cameras. Nothing. Just a blur near midnight. Whoever dropped it off knew where the blind spots were. That told me it wasn't random. I didn't show Sam. I didn't say anything to anyone. But I started locking every door, every window. I installed a second camera on the side of the house. I bought motion lights. Then a week later, my tires were slashed. All 4. In the diner parking lot. I stood in the snow staring at them while my manager called me a tow. Police came. Filed another report. Nothing happened. Again. That night, I checked my cameras again. Nothing. But that same note was back, taped to my mailbox this time. You brought this on yourself. That was the second time. I knew it had to be someone connected to Ron. Maybe a friend. Maybe his wife. Maybe one of the other HOA members who didn't like that I made them look bad on the news. I decided I had to find out. I made a list of every person Ron had filed a complaint about in the past 2 years. I visited every house. I asked simple questions. Had they received anything strange? Had anyone approached them? Most said no. Some said yes, but hadn't reported it. Then I visited the Rodriguezes. The family Ron had screamed at about their van. Turns out they had been getting letters too. Not just them. 3 other families on our street. All families of color. All had received some version of the same note. You don't belong. None of them had come forward. They didn't think anything would be done. I collected every letter. I took pictures. I made copies. Then I contacted the local station again. They did a follow-up story. This time it wasn't just about me. It was about a pattern. And this time, the fallout was bigger. People started asking questions. About the HOA. About Ron's history. About how many complaints had been quietly buried. An emergency HOA vote was called. I showed up with a folder of every letter, every incident. I read each one out loud. One of the board members resigned on the spot. Ron didn't show up to the meeting. But his wife did. She sat in the back, red-faced, arms crossed. I kept going. I didn't stop until every name was on the record. Every letter. Every time someone was told they didn't belong. That night, I got another letter. But this time it said something different. We're not done. No name.
No fingerprints.
Just those words. I filed another police report. They said they'd keep an eye on it. But I was done waiting. I started looking into Ron's military record. I found out some things that weren't public. Things he wouldn't want on the news. And I wasn't afraid to use them. I didn't go looking for the military records to ruin his life. I just wanted to understand the kind of man who could look a single mom in the face and smile while threatening her. It started with a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act. Asked for his service history, disciplinary records. I wasn't sure I'd get anything, but a few weeks later, a packet showed up in the mail. Most of it was standard. Enlistment dates, stations, commendations. Then I hit the last few pages. There was a non-disclosure agreement tied to a dishonorable discharge. Not the clean, retired with honor story he'd been telling. It had happened over 20 years ago, and the details were mostly redacted, but one thing wasn't. Conduct unbecoming and violent threats against fellow personnel. I sat there with the papers in my lap, heart racing. This man wasn't just a bully with a flagpole. He had a past. And for some reason, this neighborhood had let him slide for years. I didn't tell anyone at first. I wasn't sure what to do with it. Then, a week later, Sam came home from school crying. Some kid had called her ghetto trash. She said the teacher just told them to stop and walked away. I asked Sam if she knew the kid. She nodded. Ron's grandson. That was it for me. I scheduled a meeting with the HOA board. This time, I brought copies of everything. Ron's record, the letters, the footage, the harassment timeline. I even brought the incident with Sam's school. I laid it all out. One board member tried to interrupt. Said I was going too far. I told him straight, if you don't deal with this, the next news story isn't going to be about a spray-painted door. It's going to be about a board that ignored threats and protected a predator. There was silence. After that meeting, things moved fast. The board voted to remove Ron from the HOA entirely, something they said they'd never done before. I didn't care. I just nodded. Then the local station got wind of his discharge record. A third segment aired. This time, people really noticed. He became radioactive. Stores stopped greeting him. Someone smashed his mailbox. Another family filed a harassment suit. Ron tried to act like he was the victim, but no one was buying it anymore. I thought maybe, finally, it was over. But then one night, around 2 a.m., I heard something outside. I looked through the blinds and saw a shape at the edge of my yard. Just standing. Watching. I turned on the floodlights. They ran. Hoodie pulled low, same gait as before. But I couldn't be sure it was him. I called the police again. Filed another report. Asked them to patrol more. They didn't. But I wasn't scared anymore. I bought a crowbar. I kept it by the door. And I started documenting everything. Every sound. Every note. Every strange car. Because now I wasn't just dealing with a bitter neighbor. I was dealing with a man whose life was crumbling, and who knew I was the reason. And something told me he was about to do something reckless. I still live in that house. Sam still walks to school. The wind chimes still ring when it gets breezy. Most days feel normal now. But every time I lock the door at night, I check the cameras twice. Not because I'm afraid, but because I know what it feels like to be told you don't belong somewhere you built with your own hands. And I don't ever want to be caught off guard again. The truth is, I never wanted a war with my neighbor. I just wanted to be left alone. But once you see how deep the rot goes, it's hard to pretend you don't smell it. Some nights, I wonder if people like him ever realize they lost. Then I remember. He didn't lose because of me. He lost because he bet everything on the idea that I wouldn't fight back.